Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome. So today I wanted to talk about something really fun. Terror zones. I know terror zones have been out for a while. They've actually been out for a really long time. I just did a little bit of research just to see like when I had originally posted my terror zone video, and so Diablo 2 Resurrected, all new terror zones. That was August 25th of 2022. So it's been, like, what, nearly 2 years now? We're getting close. What, June, July to August? Only about 2 months away from the 2 year mark on Terror Zones. And I kind of wanted to go over Terror Zones and talk about, like, were they a good idea? I mean, they've had about 2 years now to integrate themselves into the game. People have had time to experience them, play with them, enjoy them in many different ways. And, was it a good idea? Like, did Terror Zones add a lot to the game, or did they take a lot away from the game? I mean, first off, when you go into a game, it immediately tells you, of course, where the Terror Zone is, assuming, of course, you have access to them. And not all the Terror Zones are really all that great. I mean, some of them are kind of crappy, to be honest. I actually do like Stonyfield. The monsters in Stonyfield are so easy to kill. Why do I not have the waypoint? What the hell? We don't have Stonyfield waypoint? Like a little troll here. But basically, when it comes to terror zones, there are specific ones that are good. There's specific ones that are bad. Pardon me. Get out of my face. And I mean, honestly, when it comes to terror zones, I think they've added a lot more to the game than they ever took away. And there's a couple cons I think that could be argued for terror zones, but for the most part, I don't really feel like most of them are really even cons. So today I'd like to go over with you guys, like after 2 years, just having fun, figuring out whether or not terror zones were an amazing addition or whether they absolutely sucked. I mean, first off, as you can tell, you get that really nice sound effect when you enter the terror zones. I always love that terror zones sound effect. Although, it kind of sounds like the Netflix sound when you boot up like a Netflix app. Now, in Terror Zones, obviously the monsters are a lot tougher. They're based on your particular level, so you can see mine are level 93. And, in general, it's a lot more fun to come in here and fight in the Terror Zones because you have a chance at more loot. Obviously, there's a lot more items that can drop in a level 93 zone than in a much lower level zone. So let's go over together today what I think about Terror Zones and how they've been integrated into the game. So first off, kick that girl in the face. Terror Zone pros. Let's talk about the pros of Terror Zones. So first off, they're good EXP. Terror Zones make leveling to 99 less of a ridiculously grindy sadness. And what I mean by this is that when you were level 98, like before, if you had hit level 98, there were only like 3 monsters in the whole game that could actually give you XP. It was Neelithak, Diablo, and Bale. It was like it. All the other monsters in the game basically gave you zero EXP. And so for the first time ever since Terror Zones were added, you kind of have a place to go level up that's not, Neelithak, Diablo, or Bale. And Neelithak was kind of off limits because that corpse explosion could kill you and ruin a lot of the EXP grind in the process. So I generally just didn't really go for Neelithak when I was grinding to level 99, not unless somebody had like pre-prepped the area and like sucked all the monsters for me. The tougher monsters are a bigger challenge. They have more HP, they're higher level. Obviously, they hit harder. There's definitely some bonuses to the fact that they're higher level, and it does make the content a little bit more challenging. Although normally when you get your characters, like fully set up and geared, even like, a fully set up TZ can sometimes be kind of easy. It really just kind of depends on how geared your character is. Higher level monsters means more chances of ultra rare loot. So this was something that I think helped out a lot because there were some items in the game that were just extremely and very rare. Like for instance, Imperial's Might, Mangsong's Lesson, things that were ultra rare for basically no reason other than the fact that most of the monsters in the game weren't really high enough level to actually drop the items because the monsters had to be at least TC 87, which meant that there were only a very scant few areas that you could potentially farm, you know, like and kill monsters to potentially get loot. And like for instance, we've got like a champion here. This guy could potentially drop me a Bang Songs. He didn't, but you know, he could, and that's kind of the whole thing, right? It breeds excitement when particularly well-loved TZs are coming up, and I think this is a very good addition to the game as a whole. Over the years, I've definitely noticed that you know, certain TZs specifically are very well-loved, like you know, like the cow level, chaos, also tombs in the Canyon of the Magi. Then also, you know, like when Andy is TZ'd and Meph when he's TZ'd and so forth and so on. And also, of course, Bale. There's definitely a lot of very like anticipated and very fun TZs that people look forward to when they pop up. And then there's ones like Stonyfield where it's like, okay, you know, I'll go farm there, but it's not like my favorite or anything. Like I'm not gonna farm make an EXP game just to farm Stonyfield. Terror zones have had interesting effects on how bosses drop items. This is something that we've learned over the years with TZs, is that not only does the TZ, of course, raise the level of monsters, it also raises the level of the clickables, it raises the level of the bosses, it raises the level of everything. Including super chests. And it also has very interesting interactions with the way that bosses will drop equipment, including Andariel's very odd ability to drop Griffin's Eye diadems for some reason. She actually has some sort of bug which allows her to drop Griffin's Eye diadems when she's terrorized, but only on like players 1 or something. It's kind of odd, but a lot of the bosses have had some interesting changes due to these upgrades in level. Diablo, for instance, has a limited loot table, and when Diablo is terrorized, his limited loot table disappears. And if you can get him above level 94, he gets an extra high drop chance for the kind of like the ultra rare TC87 uniques. It's kind of interesting to go over some of this stuff, but basically it's had some very interesting effects on the bosses, which has made farming the bosses at specific times, you know, when they're under TZ, very effective for finding loot. Items like TZs have a very high eye level, which makes them good for crafting specific items. So before, where you had to get your character to a specific level to craft items, like for instance, if you wanted to make +2 caster amulets, you had to bring your character up to a specific level and gamble the amulets so that the eye level of the amulets would be around the right point. But now that terrorized zones are here, like for instance, when I kill a monster in a TZ 93, the eye level of the items that drop is level 93. So like this ghost armor, for instance, is a level 93 ghost armor for eye level. Might be a sucky one, but you could take this and craft with it, and it would be a really, really high level craft. Of course, that is combined with your level, your character's level. So it's C level divided by 2, I level divided by 2, add the two together, and I believe you need to be at least 87 to get +2 skills on amulets, right? So it makes an interesting option to go and farm specific items for crafting. It makes lower difficulties viable for longer. So if you're having trouble getting to hell difficulty, maybe your resistances aren't quite right, maybe you still need to do a little bit of farming, but you're particularly high level. You know, there's a couple different options of why you might want to hang around a nightmare or normal difficulty for a little while. Well, having access to the terrorized zones in the lower difficulties can make a big difference. This, of course, gives you access to, like, say, I think it's like 74 in Nightmare difficulty, which actually drops a lot of good runes, a lot of good items. There's a lot of good things that you can get in Nightmare difficulty because of this. So you can spend a little bit of time farming in Nightmare if you're not ready for Hell difficulty. It's actually pretty useful. Increases the rune drop chances because the monsters are higher M level. So as I said earlier, like even in Nightmare difficulty, you can get like, I think it's like up to low, I can't remember the exact level. I know you can get some pretty high runes in Nightmare difficulty. TZ. It's I'm trying to remember the exact rune it goes up to. I think it's low. Might be a little bit higher than low. It might be like Burr, if I remember correctly. Well, this guy said he found a Sir. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But basically, what it comes down to is that because the monsters are a higher level, um, yeah, this guy has said he found a burr rune in a Nightmare TZ. It maxes out at, was it 71, but then the monsters can go up a little bit higher than that. The elites can go up a little bit higher. So you can get some pretty interesting rune drops. You can get pretty interesting item drops from Nightmare. So it makes farming Nightmare actually kind of useful in the early parts. They only become active after you kill Bale and in that difficulty, which helps to maintain the old game. So I've said this before, and for some reason or other, people take it the wrong way when I say that TZs aren't active unless you kill Hell Bale. And that the original game is preserved because of this. So if you're playing in like single player, you don't get TZs until you kill Bale, right? And then once you kill Bale, then you have TZs. But because of that, you have to play the old game before TZs were activated. You can't, obviously, you don't get access to Sunder Charms, you don't get access to the TZs themselves until after you have killed Bale. So you have to actually still do everything the old way, which means that the old game is maintained and it has proved to be a very good thing because, you know, people still have to grind through the game to get access to them, and it acts as a reward, kind of like almost like end game content, essentially, which is really neat. TZs reuse old content very effectively. Zones that most people wouldn't revisit due to their lower level are actually visited again. So this is something that you can see with like people farming the pit over and over again. Why do we farm the pit? Because the pit is a TC85 area, and because obviously we want to try and find some of those juicy TC87 uniques, right? Well, because TZs essentially set every area to TC87, it doesn't really matter, right? So at that point, the pit becomes, you know, kind of like an extra on the way, and it's just one of the many zones that can potentially be farmed. Right now, Stony Field is TC87, whereas normally it is a much lower level area in general, right? So you know, if we pull up an area level list and you take a look at the area level for Diablo 2, get off. Is there a nest over here? No. Okay. I'll just make sure. I thought there might be a nest. So if you pull up an area level list, what you're going to see is there's, you know, relatively low levels to this stuff. So Stony Field is only level 68. And the items that can drop from Stony Field are not particularly all that amazing. I mean, you can get a Harlequin Crest Shaco from, like, Rock and Ishu, but you're not getting a Griffin's Ideadem. You're not getting you know, like a Mangsong's Lesson. You're not getting a Tyrael's Might, like, from here. You're not getting basically most of the items between this TC class and the higher TC class. But having, of course, the TZ zone means that immediately this level 68, you know, moniker goes away, and now all of a sudden they're level 93, and the unique monsters are even higher level than that because I'm level 91. So, you know, this is a very good thing in my opinion. We're reusing old zones. We're going to old zones that we wouldn't normally visit. Things like Canyon of the Magi tombs, which are not normally used for EXPing or really much of anything, became super popular because, of course, with the added level, became, you know, like they became amazing. Now that they're TC87 plus, you can go in there farm EXP, you can go in there and farm items. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that drops from there. People love it. It's high density, and reusing older content is definitely a good thing overall. Cons. Sometimes the TZs suck. Sometimes some of the options are just really bad, like Mausoleum Crypt, Bloodraven, or Great Marsh. Nobody really wants to do these. There are some TZs in the list that just, it doesn't matter how good they make it, doesn't matter how high the drop chances are. Like, people just don't want to go there. And the reason why they don't want to go there is just simply because the monster types. So, like, Great Marsh is, like, mainly Thorn Hulks, Gloams. It's a miserable zone. It's absolutely miserable. And that's kind of the way that you end up dealing with things. As you look at these zones, you're like, how easy it is to get to the zone. Like, what's the quality of the monsters in the zone? In this particular, like, scenario, when we're talking about things like why Mausoleum Crypt and Bloodraven are so bad, is because they're kind of a pain in the butt to get to. There's no guaranteed way to find them. You can follow the road, but half the time when you follow the roads, you end up in Stony Field instead of Mausoleum Crypt and Bloodraven, and the density there is just terrible. Now, one of the things that I had always suggested back when TZs were first out was that they should increase density in the TZs while active, which they didn't seem to ever do. I'm not really sure why they didn't. It would have been a really fun thing to have just a higher density in general in the Terra zones. Some of the TZs should be together, but are not. This is something that they never really fix. Like, why isn't Tristram bundled with Cow Level or Stonyfield? Like, right now, if I were to go into the portal to Tristram, I'm leaving the Terror Zone, right? So I'm going to leave the Terror Zone when I enter Tristram, which is silly. Like, why isn't Tristram included? I mean, it's one of the smallest TZs too, and it's kind of silly. Oh, desync. I was wondering why I was still getting hit. Boom. I mean, there's not really a lot here. It only takes you only a couple minutes to finish off the entire zone. I always thought that some of these should have been bundled together so that you had access to more than just one TZ, but it didn't really bother. There's more, of course, than just this. I don't know why Black Marsh and the Tower aren't mixed together. For some reason, they're separate. The pit probably should have been combined with the area that the pit is in. Was it Taomi Highlands, and so forth and so on. And some of them should probably be taken out. Nobody's going to Great Marsh. I hate to tell them this, but nobody's going to Great Marsh for TZ. It's just not something that people do. And I guess that having some bad ones in the list isn't necessarily the most terrible thing, because it does cause anticipation, as I said earlier. To be excited about the new ones. So having the well-loved ones come up, and then of course you've got some crappy ones in between that nobody wants to go to. So it's kind of nice. Does it make the game too easy? I don't really think so. A lot of people argued this as a con, and over the years, I don't really think it's proven to be true. Although I do feel like we need to talk about it. So, the leveling process to get to level 99 was always grueling because of the needing to farm Diablo, Neelithak, and Pale. And a lot of people were like, well, it's just going to make the whole leveling process easier. People are going to get to 99 quicker. I mean, and they're not entirely wrong that, the elite, speedrunners get to 99 quicker. But it still takes your average player a very long time to hit 99. And it went from impossible, basically, for your average player to possible for your average player. And I think that that's a good thing. Finding more of the TC87 uniques, I think, was a good thing, too. The TC87 uniques, like Astrion's Iron Ward, Mangsong's Lessons, Griffin's Eye Diadem, so forth and so on, Tyrael's Might, were all just ridiculously too uncommon. And it really wasn't because they were hard to find. It was because you really just didn't have a large number of monsters to actually farm off of. Because even in the TC85 zones, most of the monsters still couldn't drop those items because they had to be champions, they had to be unique monsters, or they had to be minions of the unique monster. And so, for the most part, even when you were in a TC85 zone, most of the monsters couldn't drop it. On top of this, a lot of people don't know this, but Chaos Knights are not level 85. So this is another fun one. If you guys have never been to Chaos and messed around with the Chaos Knights, this is something that we found out when we were doing specific research, or the Doom Knights, my bad, the Doom Knights. The Doom Knights are not level 85 in that zone. They are actually only level 82. Despite the fact that Chaos is a level 85 zone, for some reason or another, their level is always 3 or 4 levels below whatever the zone level is, which means that whenever you were to fight, a pack of these Doom Knights, they weren't even high enough to drop TC 85 items, let alone the others. And so Chaos was actually a pretty poor place to farm because of this as well, because some of the monsters in there were much lower in general than, the others. And And so having the TZ, when you actually have the TZ effect, like the monsters are forced into a higher level, despite the fact that, in most of the time they're not. Like, for instance, when you're in Chaos, Chaos is. Where's Chaos Sanctuary on the list? There it is. See, it says it's a TC 85 area. But as you can see, those Doom Knights are only level 82. But it forces those Doom Knights to become a higher level, and they eventually become TC 87 monsters as well. So, all in all, I don't really think that it has made the game easier, but it has made finding some of the items that were ultra rare in the first place a little bit more common, so that it's not like ridiculously hard to get your hands on a Mang Song or a Tyrael's Might or something like that if you should want to. They're not even the most amazing items in the game, Tyrael's Might. Mang Song has recently come to light as pretty useful due to the Sunder Charms, but like it's still a rare item. I mean, you're not going to see one every single time you play. I mean, to say that they increase the drop rate of these TC 87 items is true, but not so much that you're going to see them on a regular basis anymore. I mean, they're still rare. They're just less rare because they actually have a chance to drop now, whereas opposed to before, they had no chance to drop for the most part when you were playing through the game. Because if you take a look at the list of area levels, I mean, when I was filtering through it earlier, there's just so many areas in there that are below level TC 85, and that means that they have zero chance to drop in any of those zones and from any of those monsters. So, giving it the possibility of dropping is not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion. I kind of wish TZs went higher. This is a con in a way because it's something that they never really messed around with, but the current cap on TZs is level 96. And of course, unique monsters can go up to level 99 within those TZs. But I would really like to see the TZs go a little bit higher level than that. Perhaps they could make it so that they go up to, like, say, if you're a level 99 character, maybe you could have TZs go up to level 99. And then, like 104. I wrote it down there, and I was totally forgetting to read it. Maybe 104 for the unique monsters, I think would be really interesting. And, or maybe even a little bit higher than that. I don't know. Maybe we could have them go up maybe 10 levels higher than 99. So maybe like the same level as Uber Edicts or Uber monsters. So if we look at like Uber Diablo in Diablo 2 Resurrected, right? So Uber Diablo, which is the one that spawns from Sojas, that his level is 110. 110 is like the highest level monster in the game, basically. And why not? Let's give Terror Zones the ability to go all the way up to like 110. That would be great. Then we can have monsters that are on the same tier as like Uber Diablo, which would be kind of fun. All in all, I don't think that TZs were a bad idea. 2 years in, I feel like TZs are pretty well received. I feel like most people enjoy them. You can turn them off if you don't like them. You can't level the game with them. So, like, if you make a new character and you try to level up with a new character that doesn't have access to TZs, you can't make Terrazone games. So, like, if you go in, you notice the Terrazones are just grayed out, and this means that like you're not forced to use Terrazones. Terror Zones, of course, can be helpful once you've beaten that particular difficulty, but to get access to the highest tier of Terror Zones, you have to kill Bale in Hell difficulty, and and you can't do that for quite some time. Even if you get G-rushed, you can't kill Bale, I don't think, until 60, because you can pass the ancients, and then once you pass the ancients, then you can kill your Bale. So you can't even really force a character to have access to the Terror Zones. Now you can make them for people, just like the old days with cow levels. So like if you wanted to, like, I had access to TZs, I could make a game with TZ access, and then you could join my game and you could play around in the TZ. But good luck killing anything in there. If you're a really low level character fighting some really high level monsters, you might have a little bit of trouble with that. But you know what? I want to know what you guys think. It's been almost 2 years now since TZs were added. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you think they're the worst thing ever? Do you think they're the best thing ever? Are you kind of blasé on them? You feel like they're not really good or bad, and you just kind of ignore their existence. I mean, I think for the most part, dealing with the community that I have, I got a kinship, and also people talking on my YouTube channel, also, obviously in live stream chat and things like that. I get the overwhelming feeling that people rather enjoy Terror Zones and think they're a good addition to the game. I think they're a good addition to the game. But I am interested to hear what you guys have to say about TZs. If you can think of any more cons than I could. I sat there and tried to rack my brain trying to think of cons for TZs, and I'm going to be honest with you, I really couldn't. Like, they're just a very good addition to the game, and I'm glad that they got added because it has opened up the game, I think, a lot more to a lot more fun stuff. I think maybe the only other con that I could maybe throw in is that sometimes it sucks to miss out on good TZs. Like if you happen to be out mowing the lawn or something or whatever, and you don't know what TZ's coming up within the next couple hours. Say 4 or 5 hours from now, and you're busy doing your work, and like a freaking Worldstone TZ pops up, or a Chaos, or a Cow TZ, and you hop on, and you're like, man, you just missed it. There was a Cow TZ, and we found like 6 burrows, and you're just like, it does a little suck to like kind of like miss out on some of the TZs, but I'm not really sure what you could do about that. I do like the random nature of it and the surprise when a good TZ comes up, and of course they also, there are some websites that have found out that they can read the API of one Terror Zone in advance, which isn't really like too amazing, but you can see at least one Terror Zone in advance, so 1 hour in advance, and that's because the app is actually sending you the TZ information. It's just kind of like hidden. But the thing is that it's not really far enough to really get you what you're looking for, is it? Offline, I believe that there's like an actual chart, and you can straight up, just see which TZ is next. And I've heard that people have been abusing the crap out of it by changing the clock on their computer or their like Nintendo Switch or random things to try and get access to specific TZs, like farming TZ Andy like all day long. I've also heard, and I have to warn you guys about doing this clock thing, that I've heard that sometimes it can corrupt your save files. Also, it cannot save your game because if you're desynced from the server and the server doesn't know what time you are and like blah 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 blah, it won't save your game. And then when you log out or something like that, I've had a couple people tell me that their save files have gotten corrupted by messing with the clock to try and manipulate the terror zones. So do be aware that that is an issue. I don't want you guys to lose out on like equipment or have your save file get corrupted from manipulating the clock. But maybe you think it's worth it. So after you get your like 6 Sojas and your 7 Griffin's Eye diadems, I don't know. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. Even when we're just talking about whether terror zones were good or not. And as always, keep watching.